Okay, today I'm going to direct you on to Agar. This is the most important part of the entire project. If you don't do your Agar right, you're not going to be able to produce enough mycelium to grow anything. First of all, you need Agar, which is basically dried up powdered seaweed. It's made for vegan gelatin. It makes a jello-like substance that people grow things on, bacteria, all kinds of things. Whenever everybody works in a laboratory, they're usually using Agar in their petri dishes. I also use malt extract, which is the things that people put together from malted milk balls, and also for making beer. I also use activated hardwood charcoal. This controls the boil and makes it so the flask don't just tip right over inside the pressure cooker when you're making it sterile. It only takes about 15 minutes to sterilize it, but it's enough time for them to tip over and have half your agar inside the pressure cooker if you don't do it the right way. And I also use nutritional yeast powder. The actual measurements are 10 grams of agar, 10 grams of malt extract, 1 gram nutritional yeast powder, and 1 gram activated hardwood charcoal. And what you want to do is get yourself a digital scale, like this one right here. I picked it up off of Amazon. It's called the American Way. That way you can measure exactly how many grams you're putting in. I'm only making up 1 flask of agar today just to show you how to do it. That's the agar. This is the malt extract. I keep the malt extract in a Tupperware container because I tried to keep it in jars, but it crystallizes and turns into a sugary mix and solidifies on the inside of a jar. So I had to stop doing it like that and started holding it in Tupperware containers instead. And what you want to do is 1 gram of nutritional yeast powder. Small amount of it, you don't need a lot. Something extra for the mycelium to feed on. The technical name for this is called malt yeast extract agar. And 1 gram of activated hardwood charcoal. Like I said, to control the boil. It does nothing for the nutrition of the mycelium. But I noticed when I started using activated hardwood charcoal, my flasks tipped over a lot less and stayed full for the most part, which is why I swear by it. Alright, now what you want to do is over here to the sink. It's got lines right here to tell you exactly what 500 milliliters is. This is the exact measurements for 500 milliliter Erlenmeyer flasks. Anything more, you need to adjust the measurements for what you put inside the glass. This is actually made from polycarbonate, which is made perfectly to go through a pressure cooker. It doesn't melt. You want to shake it up. Get it nice and mixed up in there. There you go. So that's your flask. And since you're only doing 1 flask, my best advice to you is don't put it in the pressure cooker alone. What you should do is fill your other flasks up and just put it next to it. Fill them up to the 500 milliliter mark so that it has something to stand next to it. This is again something I learned doing agar for the last 6 years. If you put more flasks inside the pressure cooker so that it doesn't have anywhere to move on the bottom of it while it's being cooked, you have better chances of it not flipping over and pouring all your agar out inside the pressure cooker when you're sterilizing it. Okay, now with these lids, what I've done is I've drilled a small hole through the lid about 3/8 of an inch, and I've taken a filter, the same kind of filters that I use for my jars to filter air through, to basically filter out contaminants and just keep the good air coming in and out. I cut a little circle and put it inside the lids to prevent anything from getting inside of it. I'll leave links for all these things eventually on the bottoms of all these videos so that you'll be able to find them yourself, including the filters. here's what we're going to do. We're going to fill it up with water, but we're not going to fill it up all the way. We're only going to fill it up to about right here, about halfway up where the water comes up and the agar comes up in the flask. That way, when it's boiling, when you're sterilizing it, it doesn't have a good chance of flipping your bottles over. The more water you put in, the more chances of it flipping your bottles over it has. Since you're only putting it through for 15 minutes, you really don't need an enormous amount of water in here. I've had people, when I started doing agar, tell you that you should put it all the way up to the line. That is not the right way to do it. You will lose most of your agar doing it that way. When the water boils, it flips your jars over with your agar inside of it. Okay, next up, we're going to work with the flow hood. We need to use this so that we can pour agar into petri dishes. First thing we need to do is turn it on. This is a fan unit. It blows through a HEPA filter, which leads to 99.99% of leak that's caught in this filter. And you have a small, teeny tiny percentage of the chance that some of it may end up in your dishes or in your jars when you open them up. But I'm pretty good at agar dishes, so it doesn't usually happen. The first thing you want to do is get yourself some petri dishes. This is a pack of 25. Second thing you want to do is sterilize the inside of your container. This is the flow hood area that I want to work. This is 70% isopropyl alcohol that I'm spraying in there. It has to be 70%, no more, no less, because it has a perfect evaporation time. It evaporates off the containers that you put it on, and it works great at sterilizing the outside of your petri dishes. Works great at sterilizing the outside of your jars when you're opening them and inoculating them with agar. There is no downside to having a bunch of 70% isopropyl alcohol in your laboratory when you're doing this. And you're going to spray it on your hands. What this is a denatured alcohol wickless burner. What it's supposed to be for is because denatured alcohol is a clean burning fuel. It doesn't leave behind any residue of any kind when you burn something with it. So what I can do is spray this scalpel down with 70% isopropyl alcohol and get it nice and sterile as it's supposed to be. But I can take the tip that I'm going to be using for work and flame sterilize it with this wickless alcohol burner, which leaves no residue on my tool. It just burns it, completely sterilizes it of anything that could possibly hurt me in my project. And I have an old petri dish that I use to keep that in. And I also use a leather hole punch. This is so I can take my transfers out of my agar petri dishes, which are these little dealies right here. What I do with it is I take the leather hole punch after it's been sterilized, and around the edges where the mycelium is crawling out to the agar, I cut little round pieces so that I can transfer them out of this dish and into a new dish, so that they will grow into a new dish and hopefully be healthy. But in order to do all of this, I have to sterilize all of my tools with a flame first. Wickless alcohol burner is perfect for this job, but some people also use an electric tool that has wires and electrodes hanging all out of it that people use to sterilize their tools without any flame. And that's sterilized. And then what you want to do with your petri dishes when you're opening them up, spray the outside with 70% isopropyl alcohol. Everything that you're going to put into this flow hood, you want to basically spray it with 70% isopropyl alcohol to get the outside of it as clean as you possibly can before you even open it up. And make sure that you open these up so that the bottom faces down, the top faces up. You can feel which one's which. Feeling on the bottles. try to cut these down to 10 in a stack, or 12 in a stack, somewhere around 12 to 13 in a stack, so that they're easy to work with. When I pick them up and have Agar actually inside these dishes, it's not going to hurt my wrist to move them around. These dishes are also nice because they have perforated bottoms that prevent them from moving around on the top. They have other kinds that don't have that stopper, where they'll slide all over the place. But the ones that I buy have a little divot in them that has a little stack in it. Is what they're called. When you're buying your petri dishes, try to get stackable kinds. You can see the agar has reached 15 psi. Now we go to the timer, 15 minutes. That's as long as it takes to sterilize your agar. We'll come back in 15 minutes and release the pressure, and we'll be able to let the agar sit for 1 hour so that it cools down. Okay, the agar has been boiled. Everything's exactly the way it's supposed to. Come on, have a look. The flasks stayed completely and totally standing up straight the way they were supposed to. This is the one with the agar in it, and it's still boiled out. But I can get about 15, maybe 20 good dishes out of this much. It wasn't a complete loss. But this is exactly what happens when you're basically doing agar. All the ones with water in it didn't boil at all. We're going to leave the timer on for 60 minutes. Actually, this is 45 minutes. And if you have more than one flask, you want to separate them when they're cooling off, so that way you don't have to heat radiate into each other. That way they have separate spaces and they can cool off. Okay, the agar has cooled down enough to be able to pour it in the dishes. The reason why we let it cool down is because if you pour it in while it's still nice and hot, just out of the pressure cooker, it's going to basically have all kinds of condensation on the lid. You don't have to tap it out. You don't have to have too much of that to deal with. And again, when you put something in your flow hood, you want to spray the outside with 70% isopropyl alcohol, dry it off. And before you go handling anything, you want to spray your hands down with isopropyl alcohol too. Make sure you get it all in there. Dry it off with paper towels. And take the lid off of your agar. And you want to zoom in and watch really close. You grab your bottom dish with your thumb and your middle finger. Pour. Put the lid on. Second dish. Pour. Put the lid on, and so on and so forth until you get to the top dish. You want to make it a really quick, swift motion so that you don't have any time to get any contaminants in the dishes while you're pouring them. You just went through all the trouble sterilizing the agar. You want to keep it nice and sterile while you're pouring them into the dishes so that you can use it. And that's it. Now we're going to wait for a couple minutes for the gelatinous agar to solidify into a jello-like mold inside the petri dishes. This is the final part of agar for tonight. This is we're going to be doing transfers. This is what healthy mycelium looks like. This is what's known as rhizomorphic growth. It kind of looks like the iris of an eye, but with a white pigment instead of having any kind of color. What you want to do with the dish, spray it with 170% isopropyl alcohol back and front all around it. Get it inside your flow hood. You open it up. And you got your sterilized tools. Another hole punch. Now what you want to do is go around every inch of it. Try to get it on the edge so that you get where it's growing aggressively. I'm going to try to grab every last piece of this mycelium off of this because it all looks very healthy and ready to go. You want to keep turning it around. You don't want to have your hand hovering over your petri dishes. You want to have as little contact over top your petri dishes from your hand as you can possibly get. And you want to also make sure you have your lid in your hand still so you can cover it. And now You take your flame sterilized scalpel and you grab these pieces out one at a time. What you want to try to do is stick the scalpel in sideways, halfway down in, and pull it out. What you want to do is have it sitting down right side up, so the mycelium actually creeps down the stalk and into the dish properly. And you can't always get what you want, but you try. One piece at a time. This is very thick agar. Sometimes I pour thick. I don't mean to. I know this doesn't look like a lot of mycelium, but it will grow out the entire dish if you did it the right way. And it takes a very little tiny amount of it to start it off. There we go. One piece at a time. See, even with stackable dishes, they move. If they weren't stackable, they'd be all over the place. One at a time, one piece at a time. You're not in a big rush to do this. Every piece needs to be proper.
Wonderland, I am wasted like you.
That's transfers. And like I said, you get condensation on your lid, like this. You take it, tap, and remove. Condensation, tap, and remove. And it usually only happens to the dishes right on top. That's transfers, that's agar. And the final step when you have your agar plates is to wrap them up with what's called parafilm. It's this stuff right here. You gotta buy it off of Amazon. It's only made by this one company. I don't know any other company that makes parafilm. But you can buy it in double ply or single. I'll buy it in double. I cut it out this way. You cut it into two separate pieces. Now what you're supposed to do with this stuff is get the paper off of it. Once you remove the paper, stretch it out as far as you can get it without breaking it. And then you come inside, check it out. Take one of your petri dishes and wrap it up with this parafilm around the edges. Bring it from one end to the other and seal it. And that is how you properly store your petri dishes once you made your transfers. And that's agar.
Spent so long, the world getting chased. Thought my place was somewhere.